Hey guys, Shy Got Picks here. Hope everyone's doing well, having a great week. We're here to be breaking down UFC 309, Jones versus Miocic. We're coming off of a nice card last week where we slapped a 4-unit play in Robertson and Abdul Malik in a parlay. They were negative 133 at the time, skyrocketed to like negative 200 by fight night. But that's how it goes. We're going to be going over every single fight on the card, the best bets, what fights we should avoid, round props, as well as any possible parlays. I've created a Patreon for any of those that are interested. The link will be in the description below. Of course, that's where I drop my official picks, but these are my official predictions. Let's get right into it. For the first fight on the card, we got Veronica Hardy versus Eduarda Mora. First we got Hardy, who is a developing UFC prospect, and she takes on Eduarda Mora, who came into the UFC undefeated and has since struggled with weight cuts and is coming off of a loss of Denise Gomes. With Veronica Hardy, Hardy has shown some great improvements since her start with the UFC, truthfully. Her husband, Dan Hardy, former UFC fighter, of course, has seemed to really help her improve a lot in her fighting. Her striking has become more refined, and she's got, decent speed and decent power. And she's also developed good takedown defense to support her BJJ. Even though she looks to keep this fight standing here, Mora kind of lacks offensive wrestling, and her missing weight certainly isn't going to help her stamina, and her strength is definitely in her grappling. The move to a higher weight class may improve her gas tank, that's absolutely for sure, and certainly worth mentioning here, but I don't think it'll solve the holes she has in her techniques really regarding her wrestling. Mora's striking is very much just her defending, really just relying on a high guard, and really she just doesn't move her head much either. Veronica Hardy is by decision is the pick here. I just think she's much more well-rounded here. She's probably going to tally up some points with her crisper boxing. She's continuously improving ever since the 4-fight skid where she got a draw, then 3 back-to-back losses in a row. She's gone 4-1 since her loss to Jillian Robertson. She's visibly better. I think she's a favorite for a reason. She shouldn't skyrocket in price either, as this fight is decently even still. So give me Hardy money line. I got her by decision. Up next on the card, we got Oban Elliott versus Basel Hafez. This should be a wrestling heavy fight, so expect that coming into it. That's why the over 2.5 is so high. Both fighters aren't the best strikers and very much rely on their wrestling to get them their wins. It should pretty much come down to who has the more cardio here. With Oban Elliott's striking is very basic. He doesn't really offer much speed or power or even head movement, really, now that I think about it. But where he lacks in striking, he has a superior cardio and average wrestling, which could carry him through it, especially if he can pace himself throughout the fight. With Hafez, you get a fighter who's very aggressive, especially with the wrestling, and who's also pretty limited when on the feet, kind of relies on throwing heavy loops, heavy looping throws when on the feet. He has shown questionable cardio as well, especially when it comes down to continuing the grappling exchanges, and has faded in later rounds in past fights. I think that's the key here. These fighters, are pretty much the same, besides the fact that Elliott has elite cardio, truthfully, and that should be key to the win here, to this fight. They're not going to knock each other out. I got Elliott by decision. Elliott's gas tank and ability to survive through those, extended grappling sequences, I think that'll be enough here. It should give him the edge, especially because we've seen Hafez gas out. Could it shock me that he wins? Not really. Maybe. I don't see why Elliott is at negative 270 now. I think that's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, I do have Elliott by decision. It's going to be a tough one. At the end of the day, like I said, it comes down. They're both wrestlers who aren't that good in striking. So basically, I'm expecting a wrestling match, and who has the better cardio? I think Elliott does. So give me Elliott by decision. Up next on the card, we got Mickey Gall versus Ramiz Brahimaj. These guys are both BJJ specialists, and this fight should pretty much be decided by who's the better fighter on the feet. With Mickey Gall, you get a guy who's basically known for his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and has struggled with striking throughout his entire career. But don't forget that the UFC is basically his career. I know his record is definitely garbage, and he is 1-4 in his last 5 fights, but he literally had one pro fight, and the rest we're in the UFC, so we got to cut him a little bit of slack. In his last fight, he looked pretty good, actually. I bet against him, and shit was I sweating. He has for sure improved his wrestling to control grappling exchanges more. His striking, you know, he doesn't really have power and speed, but Gall is skilled enough to engage in closer rounds. With Brahimaj's game is highly grappling oriented, but he struggles to initiate the takedowns, where he often depends on scrambles and or his opponents making mistakes to get the fight to the ground, really. While his BJJ is really good, his striking is pretty ass. He doesn't really have power, nor does he use combinations well. On the feet, he's not really a threat at all. Remember the fighter who had half of his ear hanging off? Yeah, this is that guy. And that was against Max Griffin. At the end of the day, Mickey Gall by decision is my pick here. Gall probably has a slight edge in wrestling, and I think he has the motivation to make him, I think it makes sense that he's the favorite here, and I think he's definitely, if he's going to win, it's going to be by decision, and it'll more than likely be through cage control and grappling exchanges. Brahimaj he just struggles to initiate offense, which I think could give Gall room to set his own pace and edge out the close rounds. Give me Gall by decision. Up next on the card, we got Marcin Tybura versus Jonata Denise. We got the veteran heavyweight Marcin Tybura who faces the younger kickboxing-oriented Jonata Denise in a fight which I think it favors Tybura's grappling experience. While Tybura, he's been knocked out recently, he definitely is durable and has a wrestling edge here for sure, as Denise relies on his boxing and pretty much looks clueless on the mat. With Tybura, he's a well-rounded fighter with an effective grappling style who uses strong takedowns and positional control. He's known for his patience and his high fight IQ, and because of that, I expect him to look to exploit Denise's lack of ground experience. Keeping the fight on the mat will avoid any exchanges that might expose that chin. Despite his age and his recent KO loss, Tybura's wrestling, it's sharp, and he has consistently proven that he can handle less developed grapplers and strikers in the UFC's heavyweight division. With Denise is a very powerful kickboxer. I mean, a very, very powerful one, really. But he's still very green in terms of MMA experience. He's shown potential with his stand-up, yet his ground game is basically non-existent. He doesn't know what he's doing down there at all, which makes this difficult for him. Can he knock out Tybura? Absolutely. I would not be shocked. And if it does happen, it'll probably be in the first round, to be honest. But Tybura is smart. I know he's 38, but if he gets this to the ground, it's his fight to win. I expect him to take him down 3 times in total, once for each round. Denise's path to victory is by knocking him out, simply put. But it won't be easy for him. I don't think so. Tybura is a much more difficult opponent for him than Lewis. There's a reason why they opened up at Pick'ems, and Tybura is now at -140. Now, if he goes any higher, I probably wouldn't take that anymore. But I ultimately got Tybura by decision here. Up next on the card, we got Damon Jackson versus Jim Miller. This should be a very, very fun fight with 2 veterans. Jackson is moving up to 155 pounds, so that's very important to mention. But I actually think it could benefit his gas tank here. But Miller's experience and BJJ skills will be very tough to face no matter what. Jackson has a relentless pace and pressures often, which has overwhelmed his opponents before, and the move up to lightweight may improve his durability and cardio, which is big for a guy who has the nickname The Leech. Jackson has respectable striking and a durable chin, although his main strength is absolutely in grinding his opponents down and wearing them out. His wrestling and grappling defense will also need to be very sharp on his end, as well, as Miller is a submission specialist. Miller has really good BJJ and some solid power on the feet as well. He's definitely aging, but Miller is still a threat, of course, especially as mentioned on the mat and in the scrambles. His gas tank has been one of his liabilities, so therefore, I think for him to win, he's going to need to finish Jackson here, and probably early, because if not, he's going to struggle to keep up as the fight goes on, especially against the Leech. The cardio and wet blanket approach from Jackson should be too much here, so I got him by decision. Put that into Patreon when he was at -115, and now he's at -180. Sometimes early in the week, the odds aren't yet where they should be, really. Glad we caught that one early, as I definitely think Jackson has the edge here. Give me Jackson by decision. Up next on the card, we got Eric Anders versus Chris Weidman. We got two veterans, both seen big declines in their careers as of late. Low level fight here, but should be a very fun one to watch, to be honest. Weidman is from Long Island, but he is 0-2 in MSG. But Anders is pretty much garbage himself as well. Anders is a strong but slow striker who tends to be gun shy. He doesn't throw much output. He's tough. He's definitely tough and durable, but his fight IQ for sure is questionable, and his cardio, both, to be honest, have led him to be in close decision fights. Anders will look to stay on the feet and strike, throwing some powerful shots when possible to look to capitalize on Weidman's holes. With Weidman, who is a former middleweight champion, of course, the guy who beat Anderson Silva twice, once by checking a leg kick, of course, and the same exact awful injury happened to Weidman years later. I remember the day of watching it live. I was at a party freaking out and no one knew why. He's definitely struggled in recent bouts, showing significant slowing and a lack of explosiveness. We've seen from him before. He's probably going to have the edge in the technical striking. His durability and limited offense post-injury have left him to having to fight extremely cautiously, really, with very little, margin for error, sort of say. His wrestling is still good for sure, but Anderson's physicality will more likely keep this fight on the feet. I got Anders by decision, but I feel awful about it. This fight should not be in anybody's slips. This is a very low-level fight. It's pretty much 50-50. Literally can go either way. But to be honest, I got Anderson by decision. But as a guy who used to live literally 5 minutes away from Weidman's gym in Long Island, I am rooting for Weidman, really. Let's be honest. I hope he gets his MSG win, but I don't think he has much left in his career, to be honest. But of course, we'll see. I am rooting for the guy. I really, really hope he gets that win in MSG, but I don't see it. Give me Anders by decision. Up next on the card, we got Marcus McGee versus Jonathan Martinez. This is by far, I wouldn't say by far, let's be honest, but I'm so excited for this fight. I think this is going to be, it's going to be a very, very fun fight to watch. Both very skilled fighters. Marcus McGee comes in with more of a precise type of approach and very well at counter-striking. Meanwhile, he's going against Martinez, who uses a volume-based style with very, very good low kicks. It's basically a pick'em fight, and it should be extremely entertaining to watch. With Marcus McGee, he's a sharp counter-striker with very fast hands and significant knockout power. This man has never seen the judges in his career. His striking is extremely clean and very dynamic, though he sometimes struggles with the output, which really is exactly why it makes this such a close fight, especially because Martinez is incredibly active. Against Martinez, McGee's ability to time his counters and potentially check those kicks, it's going to be crucial. It's going to be crucial here for him to make this fight favor him. Also, McGee's grappling skills is another important factor here if he chooses to implement that in his game plan against Martinez. Martinez is a fighter who thrives on high output, especially using a lot of low kicks, which have shown to be very, very, very difficult for his previous opponents to deal with. However, he does sort of rely on those low kicks, which could be very much exploited by a sharp counterpuncher like McGee. Who's the type to recognize patterns quickly, react, and of course counter them? Martinez seems to struggle when his primary weapon is neutralized, which we have seen in the past, especially more recently against Aldo. I think McGee's power and precision should allow him to control the exchanges here, and if he could successfully counter Martinez's kicks, like I said, that will not only be crucial, it'll be the key. He may find an opportunity to land a big bomb, and I think it's going to happen in the second round. Listen, I've been very high on Martinez. That's why I had him beating Aldo. But he pretty much did nothing to Aldo, especially because Aldo just basically took away his leg kicks. I got McGee by knockout simply because he's a finisher. Old gloves are back. The man has never seen the judges before. He's 9-1 with 8 of his wins coming by knockout, 1 by sub. All three of his wins in the UFC have a performance of the night bonus attached to it. And although this is obviously a humongous step in competition regarding his past competition. I don't see much changing here, with this becoming another performance of the night bonus. I think McGee is legit. And I know, I've been getting a little bit of slack because I tossed out my picks on Instagram a little bit early, and people are like, why McGee? And even on Patreon, truthfully. But people are asking me, am I low on Martinez? Absolutely not. I've been high on Martinez ever since. That's why I actually had a lot of money on him to beat Aldo, believe that or not, even though I look stupid there. But what I'm trying to say to you is, I'm absolutely not overlooking Martinez, but don't overlook this McGee guy. This guy's legit. He's been finishing everybody, and this is going to be his biggest test, absolutely. And I think it's going to be, it's going to end up well for McGee. Give me McGee round 2 knockout. Up next on the card, we got Mauricio Rufy versus James Yontop. Rising prospect Mauricio Rufy faces Yontop in a matchup that I think favors Rufy's dynamic striking and distance management. Well, of course, truthfully, he's at -1,000 now. Yontop is a tough, durable fighter, but he just doesn't move his head whatsoever, and his striking defense is probably going to give him a lot of troubles against a guy like Rufy. Rufy's an exciting, unpredictable striker with a mix of Muay Thai and karate, who uses his speed and footwork to control the distance, although he does leave his hands low, which I think is going to give him a lot of problems in the future against more elite competition. His reflexes and distance management are what really carry him throughout the fights. Although his defense is pretty trash himself, the way he's able to manage the reach and keep at range against anybody who doesn't really defend well, aka Yontop, Rufy is for sure a tough opponent. Rufy also can grapple, as Yontop's ground game is by far his weakest area, which for sure gives Rufy multiple paths to victory here. Yontop is a durable brawler with good output, though he just really doesn't move his head at all, which leads him to getting hurt. And he has predictable striking patterns as well, which leaves him open to counters. While he can absorb shots and keep pressing like we saw him against Slava, his inability to adapt defensively, it makes him vulnerable against fast tentacle strikers like Rufy. Yontop's resilience means he can survive, but he will more than likely need to rely more than durability to win this fight, and I just don't see any paths to victory for him here. I think Rufy will more than likely be able to get Yontop out of there. If Slava was able to put that much of a beating on Yontop, then I'm comfortable saying and predicting Rufy can get him out of there, probably by round 2. Rufy round 2 knockout is my pick. Up next on the card, we got Karine Silva versus Viviane Araujo. Karine Silva is a powerful striker with a very good ground game, and she's going against Viviane Araujo, who is an experienced fighter with a solid striking and grappling abilities. Silva is a very dangerous fighter who has a very aggressive Muay Thai style and powerful kicks, which she uses with accuracy and speed. Her hands are very solid, and her distance management is very sharp, which allows her to dictate range and lead exchanges effectively. On the ground, she's just as dangerous. She's actually has more submission wins than knockouts. Her nickname is Killer for a reason. She also has some impressive last-second submission wins, showing that she's always really looking for a finish. Against Araujo, I think she's going to have the edge on the feet, but she does need to be a little bit wary on the mat against her. With Araujo, she's a well-rounded fighter with a reliable striking and grappling. She's normally outclassed on the feet against more elite strikers, but her control game has been effective, and she could, look to leverage that here if she can get Silva down. Against Natalia Silva, Araujo struggled to manage the striking pressure, but did find moments of success with her top control. Araujo has been dropped recently, so her durability will be put to the test here. I more than likely see this going to decision where Silva wins, but I really wouldn't be surprised if she gets a finish here. If Araujo commits too heavily to the grappling, she's going to be risking getting caught by either Silva's submission or pressured back on the feet, where Silva is really the best. I think this is Silva's fight to win. Give me her by decision. But like I mentioned, I wouldn't be shocked if she gets a finish here. Up next on the card, we got Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. Bo Nickal's an elite wrestler with his striking skills improving as well. He's going against submission specialist Paul Craig. With Bo Nickal, he's a high-level wrestler who focuses on pressuring his opponents and using his power. Although his striking is still very much green, really, he has the speed and aggression to make an impact in the early stages of the fight. Against Craig, Nico will probably want to keep this fight standing to avoid Craig's, we all know how dangerous Craig is on the ground game. Where Craig isn't the best is on the feet, and maybe Nico can land something big there with Paul Craig. Craig is one of the most dangerous grapplers in the UFC, with several high-profile submissions, of course, especially off of his back. However, his stand-up game, as we all know, it's probably his biggest weakness. He's not really good defensively. He doesn't have the defensive awareness, and his ability to withstand big shots it's questionable, Coming off of a knockout loss, this is going to be a very tough matchup for Paul, but, so is Ankalaev, right? But with Bo Nickel's aggressions, his aggressive approach and striking power should be able to exploit Craig's striking defensive holes. I also really wouldn't be surprised if this goes to distance. As dumb as that sounds, Craig's submission game is always dangerous, of course, but Nickel's wrestling, I think he's smart enough to really, even if he gets himself in trouble, I think he'll be able to get himself out of trouble. I don't expect a random triangle choke here. Give me Nickel by first round knockout. Up next on the card, we got the co-main event of the night, Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. This is a rematch, of course, with the submission artist Charles Oliveira, who's facing Michael Chandler, who's coming off of a long layoff, hoping to bounce back, especially after that big wait to really fight McGregor, but of course that never happened. Both fighters are extremely dangerous very early, which always makes this an extremely exciting matchup, especially just like the first time, of course. Oliveira remains one of the most dangerous submission specialists in MMA, with his stand-up game, of course, improving every fight, though his striking defense is still very much kind of suspect sometimes. He's had success against powerful strikers, including Chandler in their last fight, while Oliveira has lost to top competitors in his recent fights. His ability to secure quick finishes always keep him as a threat, of course. I figure he's going to want to, bring this to the ground and submit Chandler. With Chandler, he's a very powerful wrestler, boxer kind of fighter who always offers knockout potential. He nearly finished Oliveira in their first fight, but of course, he's now 38, and he's coming off of a really big layoff, like I mentioned before, with him trying to fight McGregor and that never panning out. Chandler's speed and timing may not be where they used to be. Of course, we'll see. One thing about Chandler, he's always in bangers, which either leads him to being finished or finishing somebody. He puts himself in very dangerous situations, and against Oliveira, that's very scary. I expect Oliveira to take advantage of Chandler's aggression here, either by, catching him in a submission during a scramble. Can Chandler upset us here? Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially at these odds, it's juicy, right? Absolutely. I honestly have no idea why these odds are really where they at. He could definitely get a knockdown early and get submitted later, though, like we've seen before. More like the first fight, Ultimately, I don't agree with the odds, really. They should be a little bit closer, but I do have Oliveira here. I do think he should be the favorite, and I figure he submits him here. Give me Oliveira. Round 1, probably round 2. Round 2 submission. Up next on the card, we got the main event of the night. It's Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight belt, of course. Jon Jones is defending his heavyweight title against former champion Stipe Miocic, who returns after a long 3-year layoff. But he said what he said, and he's going to only come back for a championship fight. And here we are. Even though no one asked for this fight, we got it. With Jon Jones, though no longer in his prime, of course, he remains one of MMA's most skilled fighters, of course. He has elite wrestling, high fight IQ, and dangerous submission game. He's going to want to finish Miocic very early here, I would assume. While Jones has not fought since March of 2023, he has shown signs of aging, of course, and he's still effective. While Jones has not fought since March of 2023, he has shown signs of aging. He is still effective. He's always a threat when he's fighting. With Stipe Miocic has been inactive for over 3 years, making it very hard to know really what his current form is. Once once known for his knockout power, his wrestling, his grit, he's now basically 42. And for sure past his prime, and his peak strength and his abilities he's for sure past that. He's definitely slower, he's less durable. He's 42. Miocic, this is going to be an incredibly tough matchup for him here against Jones. I expect Jones to be able to do what he did against Gane, to Stipe. Gane, who's huge, tapped and gave up so easily. I could only expect the same for a 42-year-old Stipe, who hasn't fought in 3 years, who's coming back to Dana's golden boy, who's getting a layup for his last fight in MSG. Hopefully we get the Aspinall fight, but I really doubt it. But give me Jones by round 2 submission. I figure he'd submit him for sure. I don't expect this to go to the judges. We've never seen him knock anybody out really, so give me Jones by submission. That's for us here. Those are my breakdowns for the entire card. Do let me know who you guys got in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? As always, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe, as these videos take me a lot of time to make. If they happen to help you out, it would be a great way to show me some support. Please keep sending me those slips. I love it when you guys are sending me and showing me that you guys are making money off my picks. Again, thanks for watching. As always, I'll catch you in the next one. Stay up.